All right. Looks like we have most everyone uh, gathered and on, so we'll go ahead and get started. Um, Welcome, everybody. My name is Bill McDowell. I'm COO at Accelerant Research. We are proud to be the hosts of the Virtual Insights Conference that you are all currently attending. Um, Quick background on who we are, how these things came to be, and then I'll do a quick intro and kind of rundown of what you can expect for the day. But I'm going to do very little talking and let our presenters do most of the talking because that's what everyone is here to see. Um, but real quick, virtual insights conferences. So back in 2020, when lockdowns were setting in, the team here at Accelerant Research uh, was, I guess, just noticing that conferences were being canceled. Everybody was getting shut down and pushed off to their disparate at-home locations. And what we started doing was just sort of culling together, within our own networks, these, we called them at the time quarantine virtual insights conferences because nobody was in the office at the time. Many folks are in that same situation still. But we started just pulling these together as opportunity for research and insights pros to get together, talk a little shop, share some expertise and experiences and best practices. And what we plan to be just one or two of these events back in 2020 has just kind of kept rolling and going, and we've gotten really good reception, good attendance. So we just kind of kept running with it. Accelerant Research, we are the hosts of this. We are a research agency. We're not an event planning organization. We don't do, polished conferences for a living. So, what you'll get is something that's a little more on the raw, hopefully fun side, low expectations, just again, a chance for a bunch of research geeks to get together and geek out. Um, so again, I'm going to give you, quick intro and what to expect for today, and then hand off to our first presenter. Um, so, a few ground rules that we've been operating by with these conferences. Um, you know, it, it's a reminder we're at the mercy of tech. A lot of our presenters, a lot of our, MCs and moderators are still remote and at the mercy of whatever, bandwidth issues might come along, storms might come through and knock out power. You never know. So, we're forgiving, and, we're going to basically record everything, archive everything. If, tech goes out and there's an issue, then, it is what it is, and we'll all, catch it on the replay, as it were. The next point doesn't often bear repeating, but we say it anyway. Be respectful. Yeah, the fact that we're remote, that we're not at a live in-person conference doesn't give us license to, to troll and comment and be ugly to one another. What we do encourage, though, is networking, engaging, interacting. The fact that we are remote, it's, you can't raise your hand and see the audience and see folks nodding their heads as you're talking and presenting. So, to the extent that you can get on the chat, get into the Q&A, engage with not only speakers but also one another in the audience. We try to simulate the real in-person conference environment to the extent possible, and part of that is just interacting with one another and not just sitting back and listening. So do ask questions. We're talking to, like I said, research and insights folks who are well versed in defending results and talking through what they share on a daily basis. So questions, even challenging questions, are great. This is the stuff we kind of live for. So and if you're out on social, I know we're broadcasting this. We've got many folks that are directly joining via Zoom webinar. We've also got some folks over on YouTube coming in through a few different channels. What we're going to do is try to keep track of chatter in all locations. So if you submit questions, we'll keep an eye and we'll bring those to our speaker's attention. If you're out on social and you're talking about this, please use hashtag ARBIC, Twitter and LinkedIn. Talk to one another, engage with one another, and let's get rolling. Quick rundown of our slate of presenters starting at noon, which is the next presentation. We'll have Jamal Davis talking about inclusive design is accessible to everyone, followed by Marcus Cunha of University of Georgia's MMR program, as well as a couple of MMR candidates sharing some A/B test research on research results from some research that they conducted. We've got at 1:30 p.m. Michael Capretta from Warner Media talking about taking your team from research to strategy. Batting cleanup today will be JT Peace from the Weather Channel, and he'll be talking about how Weather Channel proves to brands that they drive more attentive audiences. We got a good mix today of different subject matters, different verticals, industries that folks are coming from. We've got a mix also of some hour-long presentations as well as some quicker half-hour presentations. So, hopefully a good mix, a lot of engagement. We are excited. I'm excited, and I'm also excited to stop talking and get on to the next, or to our first presenter, who is Molly Malsam. She is Senior Manager of User Experience Research at Charles Schwab, and she is going to be giving us a rundown of keeping a fully remote team connected, something that I think many of us can relate to and are excited to hear what she has to say about. So that's it. I'm going to pass off to Molly, and I'll come around at the end and maybe lead some Q&A, but otherwise I'm going to go dark. Molly, it's all yours.
Thank you, Bill. And I had to do some jockeying around everybody, speaking of the tech issues, because my company keeps removing Zoom from our computers, and I tried to add it and I couldn't. I just realized that the version of the PowerPoint I'm showing is not the same one. So we're gonna do a little dancing and see if I can talk through some of the slides that I'm not showing. Anyway, this is a good opportunity to try to think on my feet and make sure that I kind of connect here on the right thing. So let me share, and you can see that, everybody, I assume? I'm going to assume you can. So thanks for having me again today, and just wanted to talk to you, like we said, about if you want to do something more in terms of team engagement. And this is about research, but it really can apply to any type of team that's working remotely. So it doesn't specifically have to do with user experience research. It just is the format in which we did this kind of work. So before we do that, I just wanted to just tell you a little bit about myself. So I went to graduate school intending to work in politics, but thankfully I dodged a bullet there and didn't really like that field. So I went into technical writing, and I was doing that for about 12 years. And then I got really kind of tired of writing instructions for bad interfaces. And so I moved into the user experience field, and I've been there for actually the past 18 years. That was one of my updates. And about 4 years ago, I decided to focus totally on the research side, because that's really what I was the most passionate about. And then in the last year, I finally decided to give a go at managing. I wasn't sure if I ever wanted to do that. And at my age, I decided this was the time to try it. So for about the last year, I've been managing a research team that is composed of 8 people. And that really is kind of where this all started. And I've worked in a lot of different industries, but mainly I'm focused on digital experiences when we're talking about user experience. Sorry, I'm also operating 2 PowerPoints at the same time so I can get the right notes. And sorry about this, but this is my old presentation, and I'm just going to tell you that what we'll be talking about today is a little bit of background on our team And then I want to talk about a research salon that we have been doing at our company for a while. I want to talk about some extracurricular events that we do. And then I want to talk about coffee chats. And then I want to talk about educational opportunities that we've created for our team. And then lastly, some other connection points that we have to create that kind of atmosphere that we're talking about. But first, I wanted to take a poll and I wanted to ask people whether, and the question really is, since the COVID shutdowns began, has your company made efforts to promote team engagement when working remotely? And so I want to know if they have or they haven't, or maybe you don't work remotely and this doesn't apply to you. So Bill, if you'd like to show the slide, the poll and have people vote. Let me know when you're seeing some answers in. I'll maybe give it a little bit more time if you didn't hear that we're doing a little poll. You get some results in there, Bill?
Yeah, it looks like they're rolling in now.
Okay, I just saw the poll show up a little bit ago, so maybe there was some delay.
Yeah, that could have been your moderator's fault. You apologize. All right, looks like we're slowing down, so I'm going to go ahead and announce results. How's that sound?
Okay, sounds
I'm going
good.
to do my best, Richard Dawson here. Go with a survey said yes at 85% and no at 15%.
That's really good. I'm glad that that's happened. I assume that most people who have this remote engagement have made some sort of effort to promote that. I know that it was hard for all of us to figure out, and so I am glad to hear that that a lot of people have done that. And while this was happening, I did send myself the new presentation, and I would really like to do that because this is going to be really not fun to be trying to present an old slideshow. So if you would just bear with me, I'm going to try to grab that new one and pull that up. And it's just taking a minute to get through. If you all have been in PowerPoint hell most of your career or recently, that's where I'm at. So I had an updated version and somehow it didn't save properly. And so I'm sending it to myself, but it hasn't arrived yet. I'm just trying to keep talking while this comes in, and it's like a watch pot. It doesn't boil if you're watching it, and I'm watching it. So, while we're doing this, does anyone want to share, something that their companies have done for remote engagements that you found that was really valuable or that wasn't valuable? Just anything you want to share about that? And just start talking. Or Bill, I don't know if you have to unmute someone or if they have to raise hands.
Looks like we've got a couple coming into the chat. So we'll
good.
just start there. So I've got virtual happy hour, not my company, but my wife's. Got Kara with Monday morning coffee talks to start the week, non-work related. Let's see. Oh yeah, we got a bunch of them. Didn't miss any.
That's wonderful. I've got my presentation up too. So I'm going to share again, and yeah, what else was there? What else
Okay,
did
let's see
anybody
here.
share?
While you're pulling that up, stop the coffee talks. Oops. Like to remind everyone about the ground rules that I shared earlier, that we are at the mercy of tech, right? Come on, this is a perfect example.
Let's see, I can see them. We schedule
Okay,
once a month, and if the team are in the same town, they can meet in person and drop in and out of the virtual lunch with an icebreaker and no work topics. I like that. Small group, non-work interest groups, coffee chat, crime podcast, interest, movies, books. Oh, that's nice. Weekly stand-ups for all employees, virtual walks. I've done that. Monthly in-person virtual lunches, water cooler talks. Cool. These are all really interesting. So you might hear some things that are similar to that or different, but thankfully I now have the correct presentation. So this is going to make everything much easier. So I want to start with talking about how we got to the point where we started focusing on team engagement more closely. And it's actually before COVID. So when I started at the company I'm at now, I was the third researcher hired at a company of over 15,000 employees. And we had one research manager and just a handful of designers. And since then, our team has grown rapidly. So the three of us expanded to now we have almost 50 researchers. We have multiple research managers. We have a director. We have content strategists, and we have about 150 designers. So the team has gotten huge in the time that I've been there. And then sprinkle in COVID. So while this expansion was a really great testimony to the power of user experience and our company's support of it, adding this to the COVID shutdowns and everyone working remotely for the past 2 years led to serious challenges with the cohesion of our teams and really even knowing who was on the team. So this led to a lot of questions for us, like how can we effectively learn together when we're apart? How can we learn and grow from each other over video calls? What can we incorporate? How can we incorporate knowing more about each other personally, which usually happens, outside of meetings and office buildings. So how can we still make that happen? So to create opportunities for our team to bond, we put together various techniques to encourage team building and collaboration. And we've really had a lot of success with some of these techniques. And since we do plan to have a lot of people continuing to work remotely, we'll probably keep them in place for some time. And like I said, while some of these are, maybe all of them are familiar to you, maybe you'll hear a new idea or two that you can bring back to your team. And also this, I think, is just good in general for distributed teams who do have to work remotely because they're not in the same location, whether or not they are in an office. So the first thing we put into place is what we call the research salon. And actually this happened before the COVID shutdown. And so how that began as we quickly grew in those early years, we'd have researchers from all different parts of the country joining our team, and we'd get introduced and we'd have a basic understanding of what they were working on. But outside of team meetings where we might connect with them, we never really crossed paths again after that first introduction. So to try and connect, I started messaging people to learn more about what their background was and how are they handling different projects and so on. And as I met more of the team, I noticed that we were all kind of asking the same questions and we all had different thoughts that we'd want to share, that we were sharing. And I thought, we really should be talking about these things together, and we should be sharing some of the knowledge that we're getting from these conversations with each other. And so ever since I learned about the Italian invention of a salon, I really wanted to do it. And I think I read about it in college. If you aren't aware, a salon was a 16th century idea that was also popularized in France in the 17th and 18th century. And the setup was usually predominantly intelligent women would host gatherings at their home, and they would have stimulating conversations about topics of the day. And typically the woman who hosted was called the saloniere, and they were really expected to run and moderate the conversation. So when I was thinking about how I wanted to talk to researchers about all kinds of random requests and topics, I thought a salon would be a really great forum for doing something like this. So I suggested that to the manager at the time, could we start doing this? And I just went ahead and started hosting those on a monthly basis. And I wasn't a manager at the time, so it was just kind of a grassroots thing that I got started. And so we started doing these. They're an hour long, and we have them every month. And they've been going since mid 2019, and people are still interested and engaged in them. So I think we'll keep doing them for some time. And so the way we really structure and set them up is that we have a Confluent sign up page, and people can come and, if they have an idea, they can put it on the agenda for the next month. Occasionally, I do need to ask people for topics if we don't have enough. And often I'll just come up with an idea for a conversation that we could have, and I put that on the agenda as well. It usually doesn't take too much time to put something together. And in terms of what we talk about, it's really anything and everything related to research or jobs. And just to give you some examples of some things we've talked about, once we talked about how you manage your research roadmap, and we had different people sharing different ways that they do that. We had a topic, when do you use the median? When do you use mean when reporting data? We talked about research ethics and best practices in terms of that. Sometimes someone goes to a seminar or an educational event, and so they come back and give us a summary of what they learned. One time we had a debate where we had one person who was in favor of using the, is it Kano or Kano model? I'm not sure. Pros and cons of using that for prioritizing items on the roadmap. We also have an innovation lab at our company, and so oftentimes they do 6 or 8 week types of research, and they have high-level summaries. So occasionally someone from that group will share one of their lab results. And then one that we had really popular recently was just asking about how people have been interviewed for jobs for researchers, and do they, what things do they like or dislike? What are good and bad experiences? And that also helped us as managers to sort of figure out and tweak the the interviewing process that we do ourselves. So talking about extracurricular events, you might all remember when we thought we'd be in our homes for like a few weeks, and we'd go back, and then it was a few months, and then we kind of realized, hey, we don't know when we're going back, and we'd like to do some social activities. So at that point, a few extroverts on our team decided to start planning some of these extracurricular events for our group. And we affectionately call these researchers the Party Planning Committee. If anybody has watched Office, they know that this is the Party Planning Committee at the office, always coming up with different activities for the team to do. And so it was a team of 4 people, and they took it on themselves to create a plan of engagement just to celebrate fellow researchers' milestones and accomplishments, and to coordinate fun and engaging activities to just help us connect with each other. And so they really put on a lot of fun events, and I still marvel at how they did some of these, and I'll just share a couple of examples. So there was one event where they came up with a virtual piñata. I think this was some outside tool, and we got to play with the piñata. We've done online board games of various types. We've had scavenger hunts in our home, so we're looking for different things, and we'd bring them and show them or take a picture of them, and we'd have a contest with different teams to find the most things. And we had a virtual walkathon at one point where different people would walk on their own, and share their milestones, and compete against each other with prizes. And on top of that, they've added some really special touches. like we have had holiday themed gatherings. So there was a time where everybody got some caramels or Turkish delight and coffee or tea, and they got to choose which one they had. And then we all got together and had a holiday party. They started creating an intro meeting for new employees. So as you heard how much we've grown, we have a lot of people coming on new. And so in addition to everything else, they just wanted to have a, hey, welcome, like kind of a virtual get to know you event for those people. They have done baby showers. We've had people who've had babies, so they've done virtual baby showers. And of course, the birthday anniversaries, announced birthdays and work anniversaries, they announce on Teams. And then everybody shares a animated GIF that represents their wishes for that person for that day. So they pretty much coordinate all this for us, which is really wonderful. And then there was one really, really fun event that, I mean, I love food and I love cooking and I love eating. So this was various conversations about food and drink. And they started with a talk about different kinds of coffee and what the coffees are made of, different kinds of coffee drinks, and what you might pair with those in terms of desserts. And then we had a wine pairing segment. And then right here, you can see this was actually one of our researchers who showed us how to make crepes. And so people could sit in their kitchen and follow along and make crepes as well. And so that was really, really fun. And crepes, I think, look sort of like they're hard to make, but they're actually really easy. So that was a very fun event that we did. And then the next thing I wanted to talk about is coffee chats. And so, you know, although these group gatherings that we had, they did give us a venue for that face-to-face time with other researchers. I still, you know, noticed that individual conversations and relationships really only happened organically, or if, you know, a couple of researchers happened to be on the same project, they'd happen to know each other. But other than that, there wasn't a chance for that kind of one-on-one conversation. So, and also as the team grew, we found that a lot of the stuff we were doing, there was a core group of researchers who'd been there for a while. They knew each other really well. And so they were, you know, really comfortable with the relationships they had. But new researchers would be a bit outside of that tighter knit circle. And I think we all know or remember when you were in school or somewhere where you were not in the in group and people had relationships and you didn't. And so I was really concerned about people who just weren't in that group or didn't feel like they had people to talk to because they were so new. And I also realized that myself, there were so many people on the team that I'd never talked to one-on-one. And I know that's just such a great way to get to know someone. We all kind of know that those Zoom meetings online, they can be great, but it's a little awkward when you're talking sometimes. And if you have 15 people, you may not ever get a word in edgewise, or it can just be awkward. So a one-on-one conversation is just easier. It flows easier. One person talks, the next one talks. And so that one-on-one conversation was what I was really looking to create. So I decided that we should start having these coffee chats. And what we did is we started with a survey. So because we're researchers, we like to research ourselves and do research before we do things. So we just had a survey to see who wanted to do this. First of all, it wasn't obligatory, obviously. And also give people a chance to say, you know, I know these people really, really well, so don't pair me with them. I'd like to meet someone new. And then from there, I paired researchers together for once a month. And then I would give that list to the groups and tell them to meet 1 or 2 times in the month, whatever they wanted to do, for a half an hour, whatever worked for their schedule. And then also we gave them a list of kind of conversational questions that they could use to get to know each other if they're not quite as talkative as other people. And this did honestly take just a little bit of time. I realized I had to do kind of some formal tracking in Excel to make sure I didn't pair the same people twice, and I have to look it over multiple times to make sure I didn't put someone down twice, but it really isn't that much work. So we started this actually the beginning of this year, and we started with 1/4 of pairings. And then after that, I asked, do people still want to do this? And almost everybody, I think everybody who did it the first time wanted to keep doing it. And then we actually had people who didn't before that wanted to do it again. And so I'm not really sure, how long we'll do this, but I'm assuming we'll hit some kind of saturation point where most people have talked to other people, or maybe then we'll start over again. So we'll just use our research and survey methods to find out if that's what we want to do. And we have got some really good feedback on the coffee chats too. One person told me that it's something she looks forward to every month, and other people write me afterwards to say, oh, I had such a great conversation, we went over. And so it's really been something that people are really excited about. So another need we've identified, and finally we have the bandwidth to focus on, is providing more educational opportunities for our fellow researchers. And we have such a great variety of backgrounds and experiences on our team that we really have a lot of internal expertise to share. And in addition to all the stuff written out there in books and in articles and blogs about our industry, we have a lot to look at. And so when we started that, we're in the early stages of planning this. We started it this year. But again, we're starting out with researching the problem just to make sure that we really know what the problem is before we come up with solutions. So we've done an exploratory survey with our researchers just to see what things people have or haven't done recently to educate themselves, and just find out what are their reasons and their goals and motivations for doing that kind of thing. And then we're putting out a survey this week, actually, where we'll ask more specifically about what topics people want to learn most about, what kinds of formats they really like the most, what's their ideal kind of experience in getting the education they need. And then from there, we'll start coming up with some ideas and getting feedback. What we really don't want to do is, one big question we have is, do we make new things, or is it just a matter of curating what's out there? So sometimes people don't know where something is, but it is out there. So maybe it's just a matter of pulling together the resources that they need, or maybe we need to send people to more formal training programs. So we just want to make sure that we know the needs well enough so that we don't make something that people say they're going to use, but they actually don't use it. And then when we started this, we just had some initial ideas of what we might come up with. And so some of the ideas we had, and we're going to explore, are, do we want to set up mentoring relationships? So because we have newer and more experienced people on the team, should we pair them up to just help them grow in that way? Do we want to create short videos on key topics that they could just explore quickly? Do we want to create maybe case studies for different research methods or different experiences that people have had? Do we want to do workshops maybe for training purposes where people work together? Or maybe there's a curriculum that we create for different levels of expertise, and we recommend, reading these books, doing these things, depending on where you are in your career. And so in terms of who's working on this team, what we really like to do at our company is we don't just have managers solving problems. So we have a cross-functional group of people who are both team players or people who are working as individual contributors and managers. So we're looking for people who really have a passion for this, obviously, and want to take some extra time to focus on this. And then really that in and of itself does promote cohesion and teamwork, because we have people working together to solve problems outside of what they're really required to do for their job. So that's really fun. And then I just want to talk about some other connection points that we have at the company. All of this is on top of just our standard team meetings that we're involved in, such as our regular research managers meetings, our research team meetings, our meetings with the entire user experience department. And in those cases, there's often an opportunity for people to share what they're doing so that we can understand and collaborate and share knowledge that we're coming up with. But on top of that, there's a couple of other things that we do at our company. One is the quarterly research showcase. So for the past few years, the research team has organized this quarterly showcase. We invite all our product and development partners, and that just helps us to circulate our research findings to a wider audience. And these meetings are really, really well attended. There are several hundred people quite often. And we typically focus on some kind of theme that will bring findings of a similar nature together, so that, or something that works across projects and products, so that people can overall enhance their understanding of our users and what we're learning about them. Also, researchers can propose topics for these showcases. And then another thing that I've done in my team meetings is I really wanted to incorporate some of the things that I was interested in our team meetings. So, which you probably know is now a theme. I did a survey to see what kinds of things people wanted to do at our team meetings, because different people do different things at their meetings. Sometimes it's just the manager sharing a bunch of updates. Sometimes it's sharing a story and a lot of different things. So we landed on a format that I think really cements some of the things that are important to me, and that is understanding my coworkers on a personal level and having the opportunity for someone to be known. So to be known more than just their work self, like they can just be known as a person and not just, you know, somebody doing a job. I really like to have fun and laugh, so that's part of it. And then just sharpening each other with input and feedback. So the way we do it is we start out every meeting with a choice of one of two icebreaker questions. I always think those are just a fun way to get to know some random fact about someone that you might not normally know. So they have two questions in case one doesn't appeal to them. So some of the extra fun ones we've talked about are, what was your childhood actor or actress crush? What's the worst job interview you've ever had? Does your current car have a name? And if so, what and why? And I find that we're just always laughing and smiling during this time when we're going around answering these questions. And then, of course, we have the little bit of announcements from the manager perspective. And then we have a research review time where anybody can sign up to share anything that they're working on, whether it's a problem to solve or they've got a report and they want feedback on, or anything really related to the job that they want to discuss. So that's the opportunity to practice sharing information and getting feedback and learning what other people are doing and collaborating and helping each other. And I found those to be really valuable too. And then at the end, we do something which I think some families do at the dinner table, and it's what's your high and your low since the last meeting? And people will talk about work things or even personal things. And that also is just a really fun way to, it's more interesting than just a report of what you're doing. It's kind of highlighting what was great and what wasn't great. So in conclusion, most of us, we want more than just a job, but we also want to work at a place where we feel like we matter, where relationships are important and they matter, and that teams grow and learn from each other instead of just competing with each other. And so I'm really excited and really proud to be part of the community that we are at, and that people are so engaged, and we've created all these different ways to connect with each other. And I know it doesn't just happen. It takes a lot of planning and intentionality and dedication. So I just wanted to share some of those things with you. And also to wrap up, I just wanted to share a couple of quotes from people who have recently joined the team and how they feel about what it's like to work here. So one person said, "I've been continually impressed by everyone's willingness to share their expertise and think through problems together. There's a culture of collaboration that makes it easy to reach out to another researcher to learn more about who they are and their work, because people are genuinely interested in how they can help." And I really do see that people want to help each other and they want to share what they know and help people solve problems. And then lastly, this person said, "From day one, the research team does a phenomenal job making sure each team member, regardless of location, feels connected to and supported by the broader team. I believe it's because the team doesn't rely on chance or serendipity for connection and collaboration to happen. With consistent intention, the team removes blockers and creates opportunities for folks to work closely together, all while appreciating one another as individuals, remotely or not. And so that is the end of my presentation. Thank you for hanging in there with me while I juggled different PowerPoints. And now if anyone has any questions or comments, I'd love to hear them.
All right. Looks like we did have one question come in from Kara while you were presenting, and you may have touched on this some, but are these activities for your team of 8 or a larger group within your organization?
Oh, great question. So most of this was for the team of the 50, all the 50 researchers. My individual team meeting is for the 8, but everything else is for everyone else.
Huh? And other questions, please submit them now. I just had one on the quarterly research showcases that you mentioned. The audience, or I guess the presenters, does it tend to be research team members only, or do you bring in, I guess, like line of business guests to talk about results and impact and all that good stuff?
Yeah, at first, I think we had just researchers, and then we realized it would be really good to have other people who worked on these projects talked about how, how did they take this, how did this research help them? So we have also had product partners and other people come on and talk about the value of the research and what they did with it. So that, I think, has enhanced the presentations as well.
Very cool. Just checking to see if any other questions are coming in. Let's see, we've got a comment from Ivan. Love this, Molly. Many of the ideas and activities are ones that are sparking ideas for me and my teams. Thanks.
Awesome. That's great to hear.
We've got Megan with a question. How do you take into account different preferences, e.g. introverts versus extroverts? It seems like the mix of one-on-ones versus group might have done this, but did you consider anything else to make sure activities resonated with everyone?
Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I know I've made comments, so I'm part of the engagement team activities planning, and sometimes I'll make comments. For example, last time someone really wants to do karaoke, and I said, a lot of people are nervous about doing that anyway, and a lot of times they go to a bar and like drink so that they can do it. And I said, maybe we should do something a little less pressureful. So we settled on doing a name that tune kind of thing. So I don't know that we've systematically, done that, but I think that I try to think about that. And when I'm in these group things where I see people aren't talking a lot and some people are, I often try to call on people, hey, did you have anything to say? Because I've got friends who are introverts and I'm kind of on the fence. I can kind of go back and forth. And I know that a lot of my friends who are introverts feel like they have something to say, but it doesn't come out as quickly as it does for extroverts, and then they never get to say anything. So if I call on them, then a lot of times they'll have something to say. And, some people don't even like being in the spotlight and they'll just say no. And I think that's okay. But to me, if you're attending an event like that, at least you have some interest in being engaged. So I assume it's okay to, call on you, but not make you say something. So I think that's how we've done it. But if you guys have any other thoughts on that, I'd love to hear them.
Yeah, it sounds like that qualitative research moderator training coming into play. Find the wallflowers and keep them talking.
Yeah, exactly.
Let's see. Let's see, another one from Ivan. Can you share examples of some activity that didn't quite work that well and had to change?
Let me see. I'm not coming up with anything in particular. There's one I was thinking about that we needed to tweak. It was more about we put too many things in the event. So we had all these ideas of things to do. And we noticed that people were really liking a certain one, but the person running it was like, we got to go on to the next thing. And I think we realized after, hey, if people are having fun at something, let's just keep it going for the whole hour. So that's an example I can think of where we tweaked it a bit because we realized sometimes you do something and people don't really engage and you move on. If you hit something that people are just loving, then stop everything and keep doing it. So I think that'd be the advice I'd give you on that.
Very good. Let's see. I think that may be the last question that we have. Anybody else want to submit anything before we thank Molly and allow her to go about her day? Oh, too late. I spoke too soon. Let's see. We've got Rick. Let's see. I love how you incorporate both business highs and lows since last meeting and personal discussions, icebreakers. Thank you so much for sharing these great ideas to make your team members feel connected.
Yeah, I find myself really looking forward to our meetings because I want to know what everybody says about something. And it's just so, I mean, if you can talk to your manager and other people about your actress crush, it breaks down barriers and makes you realize, hey, we all had a picture of Ralph Macchio on our wall or whatever in high school. That was mine. And it just helps you to relate to each other more and just not think about, what's your role or anything else. I always like to not care about who's in charge or who's this or that. I just want to get to know people, whatever it is they do. And so I think that really does break the ice, which is why they call it icebreakers, and connect you a little bit more deeply.
Yeah, Lisa Turtle from Saved by the Bell over here. That's
Love it.
All right. Yeah, that looks like all of the questions that we had. Molly, you got us off to a really good start. Thank you so much. Looks
Thank
like we
you.
got about 10 minutes before the next presentation. So give everybody a chance to catch their breath, maybe grab a cup of coffee, and we will resume at the top of the hour. Molly, thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye.